A long time ago I decided to make a video game. Turning to the human nature, I realized people basically love two things: watching the world burn and balls. So it was decided then I would create an atmospheric, low-poly, physics-based, golf-inspired puzzle adventure video game. I also decided that I'll question my decisions later.
1,000 hours later.
The development today is progressing really well by my humble standards. Never in life have I been in a place where my game was at this state. But back then I didn't know what I was subscribing myself to. Let's rewind. I've had some prior experience with Unity, but being a cocky teenager, I jumped from one big idea to another big idea, not once having moved farther than the concept stage. So it was a big challenge, and still is to this day, to stay motivated and keep believing in an idea, while the only thing you have produced so far for the majority of the development resembled something like this. The road was rocky from the very beginning. You see, I was under the expression that if I take Unity, create a ball and assign it a rigid body, I'll be already halfway there with my game. Boom, done. That's what appealed to me in the first place, to start making this kind of game. Boy, was I wrong. Turns out real-time physics is a much more complicated subject. And it's kind of backwards really. For example, simulating a stack of 500 bowling pins and wreaking havoc, pretty easy, looks believable and nets predictable results. But when you try to roll a single ball on a simple plane, well, good luck with that, cowboy. Let me show you real quick. Here's the scene. A sphere and a plane. Let's assume it's a golf ball on grass. If the terrain has even 1 degree off of being ideally horizontal, the ball will roll forever. No matter how much you crank the angular damping or fiddle with physics materials, the ball just won't stop. And from the point of simulation, everything checks out. There is an infinitely small point of friction between the ball and the plane, so there's nothing acting on the ball to slow it down, unlike in real world, where any surface, even a glass one, will have micro bumps and scratches invisible to the naked eye. By the way, both Unity and Unreal Engine are using NVIDIA's physics, so neither is better in that regard, and both of them will require a lot of manual tweaking to get realistic results. This is just a single example. The development progress was plagued with roadblocks like, hey, this will be easy! No, it won't. But little by little, setting small goals like spending just an hour a day and being consistent with it, things started taking shape. I've spent a significant amount of time on my camera controller, which I'm really proud of, because in the end it controls and feels even better than I was imagining it. I obsess over quality of life features the users might not and frankly should not even know about, but it is what the experience is made of, those tiny little attention to detail thingies. The making of air resistance physics was another genius move of coding insanity on my part. For some reason I decided that I should not only pressure myself to try and produce the most original implementation of golf I could imagine, but also to have the most advanced rigid body physics in any game, as if dealing with physics on its own wasn't enough. To be fair, I've never seen a game implementing air-resistant forces before. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it is for a good reason and I'm missing something. But that idea sparked excitement in me and I accepted it as a challenge. And after all was done, it seems to be working and I find it adds a lot to the feel I keep talking about, even though I've spent a good unplanned month on it. I will most likely return to do a separate video on the subject in the near future, so stay put. Then was the main attraction, the visuals. The whimsical low-poly style didn't come by choice really, but was a 100% necessity to support the main gameplay mechanic, the golfing itself. I wanted this game to be a balance of skill and fortune. The fortune part is taken care of by the physics engine pretty good on its own, but the skill part had to come from the level design. I wanted the player to see and feel every facet of every game object and scenery and use it to his advantage to plan out the perfect swing. Plus, I think it just looks good and lends itself nicely to the overall genre of the game. I've also added the ability for players to slow down time, mainly to satisfy every variety of physics mayhem fetishes. And also an ability to spawn objects, which introduces a somewhat sandboxy mechanic into the mix. These are just a few of many abilities the players will have. Oh, and did I mention the game supports both real-time split-screen and turn-based multiplayers? Just think of all the possibilities in a versus match with your friends. I can't wait to show more of that stuff. The big idea from the very beginning was to make a vertical slice of the game as soon as possible, which meant that I would need all the major parts working. That included everything I listed before and a handful of other stuff too. And this is where I myself became not only the solution but the problem. Because sometimes I would get stuck on a single mechanic or a system and would spend up to a full month perfecting it. Damn you, compulsive perfectionism! I'm still learning to let go of things and to be more flexible in that regard. But in the end, I've managed to find ways to deal with Unity physics, prototyped a bunch of levels, big and small, worked out the recipe for the visual style I'm going for, and I've learned so much about Unity and game development and game design overall. But most of all, I've learned to discipline myself to plan for the future. I'm happy to say that, as of this video, the vertical slice of single-player module of the game is almost fully functional. Now comes the really fun stuff. Playing around with all the systems, figuring out the best moments of gameplay, what works and what doesn't, and building content around those concepts. Getting back to the topic of video, I can safely say that after 1,000+ hours of game development, I've become much more organized. And that also spilled in the personal life too. Maintaining a clean room, for example, is now a higher priority than before. I've managed to find workarounds and hacks around my personal traits and quirks, which led me to start getting up much earlier, so I'd have more uninterrupted game dev time. Big tasks are not so daunting anymore, especially when you learn to break them down into smaller pieces, and those smaller tasks are not being postponed as indefinitely as before. I write down everything. Any idea, thought, concept, bug, feature, possible title, everything ends up in my notes app or a Trello board. That way nothing is being lost or forgotten, and more importantly you are decluttering your brain from the non-essential information. The single thing that worked wonders for me personally was setting really small goals. Like I've mentioned, I've started with just the goal of spending 30 hours on game dev a month. That meant I could work an hour a day or have those 7 hours spread across weekends. Starting small definitely played the biggest role in leading me here, because every hour felt like an achievement, every achievement made me happy, and when you are happy you are motivated to accomplish more. Doing 30 hours a month isn't that hard at all, even if you are the busiest person ever, and 30 hours is not a small feat, you can do a lot of stuff in that time frame. The thing you find out when you actually start doing something consistently is that there, in fact, always was time for your passion, despite the excuses. But then I've started noticing a pattern in my behavior. I would occasionally postpone the development because I've had plenty of time left in the month to catch up to those 30 hours. So I've tweaked my goal from doing 30 hours a month to doing an hour of dev every day, and I counted those days. Then, if I'd miss a day, I would have no way to make up for it later. And that worked even better. Treating passion as a challenge or a game somehow tricks our minds to stop procrastinating and just do stuff that's important to you. But it also was and still is the most stressful experience too. It might sound weird to some, but I think the majority will agree. It is not the act of development itself which is the hardest. In fact, it was the easiest aspect of all by a mile, despite accounting for 90% of all the time and energy spent. What was and remains the hardest is dealing with bouts of anxiety, self-doubts, apathy, mood swings, feeling of being stuck in a rut when you're faced with seemingly impossible problem, or pressure from all the time I've spent, or wasted, on this. What if it's all for nothing? Those are the toughest passengers that come with game development. But the positives definitely outweigh the negatives by a lot. I hope by the time I clock another 1000 hours of development, the game will be close to releasing or even be released. Thank you all for spending the time with me. I wish you all good luck in your passions and have a wonderful week.
you.